Good afternoon and welcome to today's presentation, Getting Started in QuickBooks Online Accountant. My name is Matthew Peterson. I'll be the presenter for today. Thank you for taking a few minutes out of your busy schedules to spend a few minutes with us learning about QuickBooks Online Accountant. Today's presentation is designed for accountants and bookkeepers who will be using or who currently are using QuickBooks Online Accountant to support and work with your clients. So today we're going to learn about the benefits of QuickBooks Online, the benefits of the Accountant Edition, and why it will probably become a really big part of your practice today and in the future. Before we get started, I just want to give you a brief introduction of who I am. My name is Matthew Peterson. I have been training on QuickBooks for a really long time now. It seems like it's been the only job I've had since I finished college many years ago. So I have a lot of experience training both accountants and bookkeepers as well as your clients across Canada. I can relate to some of the challenges that you go through on a day-to-day basis. I used to work for Intuit, and when I left, I left to start a training company, but along the way I started to do some outsourced bookkeeping. And that was a really big challenge. That was about 8 or 9 years ago that we started that. And the technology just wasn't there. QuickBooks Online Accountant wasn't around. A lot of the apps that you'll use to automate a lot of the work that you'll do, they weren't there. So it made outsourced bookkeeping and bookkeeping and accounting very difficult. So that's why I'm so excited to talk about QuickBooks Online Accountant today, is because a lot of the technology has come so far and it's so ready for you as practitioners to support your clients with that new technology. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, in this presentation, we're really going to do 4 things. The first one is talk about the benefits of cloud accounting. So this is really an introduction to QuickBooks Online Accountant. If you're brand new to it, you're in the right place. Maybe if you've been using it for a really long time, it may be a little bit of review for you just to kind of set your expectations. So we're going to talk about the benefits of cloud accounting. We're going to do an overview and a demonstration of QuickBooks Online Accountant. Now, throughout today's session, I'll probably use an acronym QBOA to talk about that because it's quite a mouthful to say over and over. So I'll make sure that I say that using QBOA so you understand what I'm talking about. So we're going to do a review of QBOA. We'll do a demonstration of it, how it works, how you support your clients within it, just to kind of give you an idea of what can be done within the software. And then we'll make sure that we answer your questions today. So while you're not going to be able to interact verbally, you can certainly use the tool, the GoToWebinar tool, to ask questions, and I'll make sure that we answer all of those questions in the session today. So on that note, just a brief review of how to ask a question. So in your GoToWebinar panel, you'll see there is a question section. You can click the arrow and it will expand it, and you can simply type your question in there, click send, and I will get that question. Now, if it's a general question, which most of them are, I'll answer them for the group. I may delay it till a future section in the presentation today. If it's a specific question, I may answer it later on in the session or at the end when I have a bit more time to give you a thorough answer. So I encourage you to ask questions. Please ask them as we go. If you have specific questions about specific topics while we're talking about them, I'd love to address them there or at the end if you wish. I really want to make sure that you get your questions answered so you leave this presentation knowing what QuickBooks Online Accountant can do for you, what it's all about, and how it's going to help you support your clients. So to get started, I just want to introduce what QuickBooks Online is. So first, it really is just everyday accounting software that you're used to using. All the powerful accounting tools that QuickBooks has built over the years are in QuickBooks Online. So it is accounting software. The difference the key difference is that it is a small business accounting software hosted in the cloud, meaning that it's accessed online. It means there's no longer desktop software that you have to install and use while sitting at your desktop. You access it via a web browser online. Now that has a number of really big benefits, and we're going to talk about those throughout the session today. The biggest principle to remember is that it's accessible anywhere, anytime, online. So as long as you have an internet connection, you can access QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Online Accountant. So that's the benefit that QuickBooks Online provides over its desktop counterpart, QuickBooks Desktop, or even other competitors out there. So that's an important distinction between it and the desktop that you're probably have some history with in your practice. Or perhaps you're brand new to accounting and this is all you know, and that's even better. Then you don't have to worry about that legacy desktop software. So in addition to being accessible anywhere, anytime, it also is hosted by Intuit, so you have the backing of that big company who's had many, many years of accounting software experience. So it's safe and secure, hosted online by Intuit. And that's a really important part of your practice, making sure that you're partnering with companies that are going to keep your clients' data very safe. And QuickBooks is very, very focused on security for you and your clients. So that's really what QuickBooks Online is. You probably have some experience in QuickBooks at some point. This just is a different solution because it's hosted online. Now, to ask the second question, what is QuickBooks Online Accountant? Well, QuickBooks Online Accountant is designed specifically for accountants and bookkeepers. It's designed to help you collaborate with your QuickBooks Online clients in the cloud. So it allows you to access your clients' QuickBooks files, but it also has specific tools and features that will let you get more out of QuickBooks Online for your clients and lets you work with them more efficiently and effectively. And we'll talk specifically about those benefits, and then we'll show you those features that highlight those benefits when we go through the demonstration in a few minutes here. So before I move on, are there any questions about what QuickBooks Online is or what QuickBooks Online Accountant is? We may need to clarify a little bit more, but are there any general questions that you have right now that I can answer before we move on to the next section? So a question comes in from Joe. Can I access all of my client files within QuickBooks Online Accountant? You most certainly can, as long as your clients are in QuickBooks Online. They will appear in your client list, which we'll show you in a few minutes, and you'll be able to access them all from one place. Another question comes in from Jane. She asks, can I convert my desktop clients? So if you're referring to QuickBooks Desktop, yes, you can convert your QuickBooks Desktop clients directly into QuickBooks Online. So that is certainly an option that is automated. Within QuickBooks Desktop, you can convert those files and it will copy all of that information into QuickBooks Online, and you'll have a great starting place to use QBO. Okay. So really great questions. Another question comes in from Renee, and she asks a good question. Will you be able to have two clients open at one time as I do on desktop? That's a really great question. Yes, it is possible. It's not possible in the traditional way that you would open up multiple tabs in your browser, but what you can do in QuickBooks Online is you can open up different browsers, and you can open up different clients in those different browsers. For example, you could open up Google Chrome and open up one company, and open up Mozilla Firefox and open up another company. So that's one example of how you can do it. You can also do it by using what we call incognito windows in Google Chrome. Now, Google Chrome is going to be the recommended browser for using QBO because it is fully supported and it has all of the necessary technology to support QuickBooks Online. And within Chrome, there are some great features that you can take advantage of as an accountant or bookkeeper to open multiple company files at once. And one of those is incognito mode. And you can open up multiple companies when you're in that mode. So yes, the answer is yes, you can do that. You would just need to do a workaround using the incognito mode to handle that. Lois asks a really good question, and it's a tough answer. She asks, can this online program be reversed if the client finds it is not for them? So that's a great question. No, you cannot convert a client file from QuickBooks Online back to QuickBooks Desktop. But that being said, when you do a conversion from QuickBooks Desktop into QuickBooks Online, your desktop file stays intact. So my recommendation would be to work in parallel for a week or two and test out the features in QuickBooks Desktop and test the features out in QuickBooks Online. You'll probably discover QuickBooks Online will work for most of your clients, especially if you set up the bank feed, which we'll talk about today, which really automates a lot of the work that you do. So you can take a lot of that day-to-day data entry drudgery, I would call it, away from yourself and your clients, and you can automate a lot of that data entry using the bank feed. So once people find that that bank feed really automates work for them, I find that a lot of them don't want to go back. There may be some cases where, you know, some of the advanced users in QuickBooks Desktop really like it, but that is something that is definitely something you can't go directly back, but you certainly can get the information out. Are there any other questions? Okay, sorry about that. I just had a mute problem there. Another question comes in, and it asks, it's from Renee again, can my staff be an employee module and myself be in the reconciliation module or other modules at the same time? Yes, most certainly you can. You can be in QuickBooks logged in at the same time with all of your staff as well as all of your client users that may be in there at that same time. So that is certainly something that that you can do. That's not a challenge for QuickBooks Online. It may have been in desktop software, but in QBO, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, I'm just going to pause for 1 second, and I have just a technical problem to sort out really quick before I keep going, so just 1 second. Okay, I think I've got it figured out. Perfect. Renee asked another follow-up question before we move on. Is job costing available? Yes, it is. Job costing is certainly a function that you can do in QuickBooks Online. The only part that is not fully functional, like perhaps QuickBooks Desktop, would be the job costing of payroll. That would probably be something that you would either use an app for or maybe do a couple workarounds. It is slightly different than what you might be expecting if you were using the QuickBooks Desktop version. So those are great questions. Thank you very much for those questions. We're going to move on now, and we'll come back to questions as we go throughout the session today. Okay, so let's talk about the benefits of Online Accountant, specifically around some of the things that it has to help you support your clients. So first of all, you do have anywhere, anytime access to all of your client files. That means that not only can your clients access their files anywhere, anytime, you also have that same access. So through the QuickBooks Online Accountant, you can access QuickBooks from anywhere with an internet connection. So that's a really big benefit there. Now, another one that relates to that anywhere, anytime access is the fact that you don't have to worry about data files any longer. Any data file issues you have will now be resolved because there will be no data file to send back and forth, to make backups of, to email. All of those complications and challenges that you had with QuickBooks Desktop are going to be relieved, and any other competitive software will be gone because everything's in the cloud, your files are all there, and they're all being updated at the same time. So you don't have to worry about any back and forth. You don't have to worry about, overriding new files with old files and so on. Okay. The next one, the benefits of QuickBooks Online Accountant. So there's secure single sign access. Single sign-on access, meaning that you log in one time with your username and password, and you immediately have QuickBooks clients in your list, and you can immediately go in and view all of those clients at the same time. So not at the same time, rather, on one list, and then you can log into individual clients when you need to. So instead of having to remember username and passwords for all of your different clients, you can simply go in and see all of your clients in one place, and then with one single click you can log in directly to their client file. So you no longer need any usernames, passwords, any versions. It's all in one place, and you can log into that client file at that point. So it makes working with your client files very easy. You don't have to worry about any of that complexity around that type of detail. Okay. Now, another benefit about QuickBooks Online Accountant is that you can see everyone in this one easy-to-use dashboard. So I was talking about the client list. You see the client listed here. You can click on any one of those links and it will take you directly into the client list. It also gives you a dashboard view in that you can see all of the clients there, and it will actually raise some of the issues that your clients may be having. So it may provide you with details about problems that your clients are going through. So something like maybe someone has changed a reconciled transaction or changed something prior to the closing date and caused some problems. A lot of those problems will be highlighted in the dashboard under the bookkeeping section. So it's something that is really beneficial for keeping track of what's going on in your clients' files. Okay, so that's a really big benefit. Now, are there any questions about what we've talked about so far, just in reviewing those few benefits there? I'll just pause for a moment and let you ask any questions here. Okay, a good question comes in about the dashboard. The question is, what does it mean 33 unaccepted transactions? Great question. So you'll see on the bottom of that screen capture I have there, there's under the bookkeeping for review section, it highlights one of the problem areas, and that's unaccepted transactions. That means that a client has downloaded a number of transactions from the online banking section and has not processed those. They haven't gone through the work of actually making sure they're working and they've been added to QuickBooks. So essentially, it's not a problem. It's more of a task that you'll need to complete, and that's something that is going to be a really big important part, is just making sure that you're processing the online banking information, and that will enable you to do that. Okay, another question comes in from Renee. She asks, can my employees have certain permissions as they are allowed, as what they are allowed to access or not, or clients for that matter? So yes, you can. So you can set up different permissions for different users in QuickBooks. So whether they want to have sales and accounts receivable access, or purchasing and payables, you can set up that kind of access. When it comes to your client, to your firm users or your employees, they will have unlimited access. It does not let you go any more granular than giving them unlimited access to the client files. For the accountant user and any firm user, they will have unlimited access to the client files that you select. Not every client, but rather just the client that you select. And that's important because a lot of accountants have wanted unlimited access, so they provided that, but that may be a little bit too much access for some of your employees, so you'll have to play that by ear there. That's a really good question. All right, these are great questions. Keep them coming. Thank you. So another benefit that you may have seen already is the ability to work with all of your clients in the same version of software. So that's really important because a lot of software today, there are desktop software specifically, requires that you have updates, releases, and things like that. QuickBooks Online is always going to be up to date. You don't need to update it. All of your clients are going to be using the same version. It's all QuickBooks Online. The only difference you'll experience is if some clients subscribe to QuickBooks Online Essentials versus QuickBooks Online Plus. There may be a few additional features in Online Plus, but that's all. There's nothing really big as far as differences go between those two versions. So you're always going to be working in the same files, the same software that your clients are working on, with no need to worry about updates, release numbers, and things like that. So it really makes your life a lot easier as an accountant or bookkeeper. Now, a good question that Lois asked about the cost. So, can I use both desktop and online as a pro advisor? You most certainly can. QuickBooks Online is free for you as the accountant or bookkeeper. You can access all of your client files, and you'll be able to have unlimited access. The desktop is a separate program, so you'd still continue to subscribe to the Pro Advisor program, but your cost as far as QuickBooks Online goes is it's free for the accountant. Obviously your client would subscribe, or we'll talk about in a few minutes, if you subscribe, you get a significant discount when you're the subscriber, or what we call the master administrator who subscribes and pays for this subscription. So it really depends on how you set it up, but yes, you can subscribe yourself, or your clients can subscribe, but it's separate from the desktop version. Now, another benefit of the QuickBooks Online Accountant as it relates to the software versions is that you're always going to be in sync with your client. It's going to make sure that you're always using the same version, so they'll be using the same thing that you are, and that's really going to increase your efficiency because there's not going to be that conflict ever between versions. Now, there are also other tools in QuickBooks Online Accountant that are not available in the QBO version in QuickBooks Online. So when you're in the QuickBooks Online Accountant version, you'll see a specific navigation that you'll be able to use. You'll also see a series of tools under what we call the Accountant Toolbox. So that's where you're going to find things like Reclassify Transactions, undoing reconciliations, specific accountant reports. So there's a number of features that are available to you as the accountant that are just not available to your client, and they don't see that that access point. So that's going to be a really significant value to you as the accountant to more effectively work with your client files. Now, to connect with your client, it's very easy. If they're already using QuickBooks Online, they can invite you, like you see here on this window. They send an invitation via email. You accept their invitation, and that user, that customer or client, will automatically be added to your QuickBooks Online Accountant Edition client list. So that's something that you'll automatically do when you accept their invitation. So that's very easy. The other way to connect would be to set up a client from scratch, and at that point you can automatically add that client to your client list. So there's nothing you need to do. Is if you set them up from scratch, they're automatically going to be put into the client list, and you'll automatically see them there. There's no task that's needed to be done. It's automated right from the setup. And so that's the two ways you can connect to your clients. It's very easy to be able to connect. And if you have any client files that are on QuickBooks Desktop, you can convert them. And QuickBooks even converts things like Sage and Simply accounting files. If you give into it a call, they'll convert those files to QuickBooks Online for you. So it's very easy to get people into QuickBooks Online Accountant client list. It's not a lot of work there. Now, are there any questions about connecting to your clients or your client list here? Okay, a couple of other good questions. If we get kicked off the internet, how does that affect the work we are doing in QuickBooks? Well, that is going to be something that may happen from time to time, but very, very seldom does QuickBooks go down itself. It's got 99.9% uptime. Now, if your connection disconnects, you will have to wait till you get back online. But these days, the internet has become such a reliable, almost utility-like, that doesn't happen that often. But most certainly it is something that you may experience. Okay, I'm just reviewing a couple of other questions here. Okay, so Renee asked a great question. I'm a pro advisor and have all client files here. Do I set up my clients first before switching to online? None of my clients have QuickBooks themselves. You would probably set up the client list and then convert those clients. So you would set up your QuickBooks Online Accountant, and then you would just begin to convert them, and they would automatically be added to your client list. So that's certainly something that you can do very easily. Okay. Any other questions before we keep going here? Just got a few specific ones I'm answering. Any other questions here? Okay, another question about the invitation to the accountant. The question is, should I set up QuickBooks Online Accountant before I ask my clients to invite? Yes, it's a good idea, because if you haven't set it up already, it will not know how to connect them into your client list. So it's a good idea to set your client list up, or set your QuickBooks Online Accountant edition up, and then they'll be added automatically to your client list. So that's a really great question. All right, so I'm just going to go forward and just complete these before we get into our quick demonstration. So we had talked a little bit about pricing throughout on a number of issues. I want to talk about one of the benefits that QuickBooks has added to QuickBooks Online Accountant. So we have noticed, Intuit has noticed recently that a lot of accountants and bookkeepers are moving to more of a fixed fee, or what's often referred to in the industry speak would be value pricing. And that means that a lot of accountants and bookkeepers are charging a monthly flat fee for their clients, and they're providing services within that fee instead of hourly billing. So Intuit, to help you do that, has come up with an effective pricing method, and it's called wholesale pricing. And essentially what it does is it gives you a deep benefit as an accountant or bookkeeper user to subscribe on behalf of your clients and roll those fees into your client's price every month. So essentially what QuickBooks Wholesale Pricing does for you as the accountant is it gives you 50% off of the subscription for the entire life of the subscription when you subscribe. So if you subscribe for a new client, they will get 50% off, or I guess you will get 50% off because you will be the subscriber and paying for that. And that has a big benefit because it gives you 50% off of the price. So the Online Plus version today is $40 a month. If you subscribe, you will get it for $20. There's also a couple of other benefits. You get a consolidated bill for all of your clients in one bill. That can be helpful when doing your own bookkeeping. And then another, I guess, unusual benefit, but a really good one, is that you get unlimited users in QuickBooks Online Essentials and Plus. So instead of being restricted to the 3 users in QuickBooks Online Essentials and the 5 users in QuickBooks Online Plus, you have unlimited users. Or I guess I could say there's 999 users. And so that just expands the use of QuickBooks. So if you have a client that needs 10 users, if you subscribe to wholesale pricing, you'll be able to give them those 10 users as part of their subscription. So it really has that nice benefit of providing a little bit more information, access to those users. Now, the alternative to subscribing yourself would be if your client subscribes. Now, if they were to subscribe, they will still get 50% off, but they only get it for the first year of the subscription. So it's not something that they're going to be able to have indefinitely. It's going to be something that's going to subscribe for only 1 year, and then after that year, you'll have to then go back up to the regular price, is what I'm trying to say. So that's an important part of the subscription when your client is subscribing. So they will have that discount, but only for the duration of a year. Okay, now are there any questions about that one? I know that's a pretty big one that people ask us quite a bit about, but I just want to make sure that I didn't leave anything unclear there. Okay, so let's now move on to a quick demonstration of QuickBooks Online. So I'm just going to pause for a second and just change my screen here. All right, so here's my single sign-in login. So this is the start of our QuickBooks Online Accountant demonstration. So this is the first window that you're going to see. So you'll see here the single sign-on. So you'll notice that I am using Google Chrome. I have a tab open at the top with QuickBooks, and you can bookmark the address, and you can visit this site from that bookmark, and you'll log in, and as soon as you log in, you'll immediately see that you will have all of your clients listed there in the client list. So there's a few things about the QuickBooks Online Accountant that I want to highlight before we dig down into a client file. So first of all, in the top left corner, you see the QB Accountant icon. That is going to be a consistent place where you can go and click to get back to this location. So when you click on QB Accountant from wherever you are, it'll take you back to this client list view. Now on the right hand side, you'll notice that there's 3 lines here, what we call a hamburger icon. You can minimize that left hand side if you wish, or you can keep it open. Now the left hand side is going to give you your clients. So when I click on clients, this is going to provide me with the client list here. Now the client list is going to provide you with all of your clients and then all of the details under 3 columns: bookkeeping, payroll, and tax. Bookkeeping is going to tell you 3 things: what the status of their file is, so if they're subscribed to QuickBooks, and if they have a closing date set up in their QuickBooks file. So the closing date, if you're not familiar with it, is simply a date that you assign that will close the books, or rather lock them from being worked on prior to that particular date. So usually you'll set that closing date as the fiscal year end, or it may be something different like a month end, or maybe a quarter end, or sales tax filing, but it's a date that you'll see. So you should be able to see from this window the status of all of your closing dates. And that's a really important feature, just so you can have a quick eyeball look at your client files and see where they are. Under the For Review section, that's where you're going to see 5 or 6 things that will be highlighted there that will highlight problem areas in your client files. So for example, if someone's changed something in a reconciliation, it will be highlighted there. If you have changes to the closing date, you'll highlight it there. Unaccepted transactions will be there. Checks without payees will be there. And exceptions that are going to be causing problems will also be highlighted there. So you'll see some items there from time to time based on what your clients may be doing. And it's a really good feature because you simply hover over these items, you click on them, and it'll actually let you review the chart of accounts directly in that company file. And if you want to go further, you can actually click on the right hand side over here, and you can directly drill down into the client file and right to that transaction. So it's a great way of working on problem areas without having to search for them. QuickBooks will highlight them for you automatically. So to go back, I simply click the QB Accountant icon, and it takes me back to this window. Now, in addition to the bookkeeping option here, you also have payroll, so it's going to do the same type of activity. It's going to highlight the status and any items that you have coming due. You'll also have a tax option here. So on the right hand side, you now have tax. This is very new, within the last few weeks in fact. And what the tax options will let you do is it will actually let you do essentially working papers. So you can go through and you can work on a client file in preparation for tax. And that is a feature that is an additional feature to QuickBooks Online Accountant that's just been recently released. And so I'd encourage you to get signed up and go and take a look at that feature and see what it can do for you. Especially helpful if you're going to be doing any T2 tax prep. Now, in addition to the client list, you also have a team section here on the left-hand side, and this is where you're going to add new team members. So here I've got a lot of team members in my client file here. I click on Add User, and from this window, I can go through, I can add a new user. So I go and I say, I want to add George Jones. He's my newest staff member. I add his email address. And I click Next, and I then tell QuickBooks what access I want to give him to my own books. So that's a feature you have in QuickBooks. You can manage your own books. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm not going to give him any access, so I'll ignore that and I'll click Next. And then I choose the client files that I want him to be working on. So I select the ones that he's going to have access to, and then I click Save, and that immediately sends him an invitation to participate in the accounting. So he's now going to get an invitation. He'll accept that invitation. He'll now have his own QBOA login, and he'll be able to see specific client files at that time. So very easy to work with that type of client file when you want to set up your team members. So I really like that feature because it enables me to set up team members. They have access to different client files. You don't have to set them up in any other way. It's automatically going to be done there. Okay, and then the third tab on the left-hand side is Pro Advisor. So the Pro Advisor tab is going to let you manage your own subscription to QuickBooks Online Accountant. Although it's free, that's where you're going to manage all that type of detail, and it's all going to be in that one tab. Okay, so from here, we can now begin to work with your client files a little bit more detailed. So let's suppose that I want to log into a client file. So I'm going to go and log into this Canada Fitness file right here. So I'll click on this green QB icon. Now from here, I can begin to work with my client file. Now you'll still have the view that your client will have, with the exception across the top you're going to have the consistent QuickBooks Online Accountant version navigation. So you've got QB Accountant here. I have the Accountant Toolbox, which we'll come back to in a few minutes, and those are going to be the specific tools that are available for you as the accountant and bookkeeper. And then you have this drop-down menu where you can actually toggle to different client files. So instead of going back to the client list, you can toggle directly from here to a different client file. Okay, so that's an option that you've got in addition to going back to the client list. You can toggle directly to a different client file. And so it makes easy work of navigating to different files when you want to work with clients. Now from here, I want to show you a few additional items that are really important. So we talk about QuickBooks Online, and one of the biggest benefits, it's not specifically in QuickBooks Online Accountant, but it is something that you'll get a huge benefit out of, and that's the automation features, and specifically the bank feed. So in QuickBooks Online Accountant, you can connect your client's bank account or credit card accounts directly to QuickBooks, and it will begin to download transactions directly into the QuickBooks file whenever new transactions are available, or on a regular basis, I should say. It doesn't download them every single day, but you can, if you go in there and you prompt it to, it will actually download new transactions. So in the top right corner, you'll see that there's a credit card with a check mark beside it. Essentially, when I click on that account, actually, let me take it back for a second here. I'm going to show you, before I do that work, I want to go through and I want to show you where to connect an account, and so that you can see exactly what it is you're doing when you go in there. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the home page. I think I'm there right now. There we go. So back on the home page, I can click on the Connect Account button here in the bottom right corner. Now from this window, I can actually connect my client's bank. So let's suppose that my client is using Royal Bank. I would click the Royal Bank. I would enter their username or card number in most cases, and then their password, and that would make an automatic connection to my client's bank account or credit card account. And from then on, you would select the account that it's linked to in QuickBooks, and it would then begin to download transactions. Now the benefit of this is it automates all the work. So you no longer have to do manual data entry. It automatically gets entered into QuickBooks, and all you have to do is approve the transactions. And there's a few different ways that you can do that. So once you've got it set up and you want to go and start to work with the bank feed, you'll go back to the home page and you'll click in the top right corner. You'll see that there is a number there with a circle around it, and that's because these transactions have been added to QuickBooks overnight or whenever the last bank feed was downloaded. So you'll see in here you've automatically got a bunch of transactions, and they're appearing with different icons here. So there's a few things that QuickBooks is going to do for you. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to search for any matches. So as soon as the bank feed downloads and processes, it's going to look for any transactions that are matching, because it doesn't want to create any duplicates. So you'll see on occasion match transactions. You'll also see rules. So you can set up a rule in QuickBooks that tells QuickBooks what to do in specific scenarios. So it tells QuickBooks, when you have this scenario, do this. So for example, there is an office supplies rule in this file. So let's go take a look at what that means. So I'm going to click on this drop-down arrow here and then click Manage Rules. And I'll click on Edit the Office Expense Rule. So what we've got set up here is an office expense rule that is for money out or expenses in all the bank accounts or credit card accounts in QuickBooks. So that's what I'm reading across the top here, as QuickBooks has been told to apply this rule against all the money out in QuickBooks, including credit cards and bank accounts. And when a transaction meets all of these conditions that I've given it here, then categorize it to this particular category with this tax code. So I've told QuickBooks when the description contains Supplies Depot, and that's how QuickBooks is going to work. As soon as it sees a description that includes the payee name, Supplies Depot, and the amount on the transaction is less than $200, then categorize it to the office supplies account and add HST. So essentially you're automating the books to do exactly what you're telling it to do according to these rules. So it's a great feature because the more rules you set up in your client files, the more automated it will become. So if your client is always incurring bank charges for particular amounts, you can set up bank rules that automate those bank charges every time they get downloaded. Or maybe loan payments, automatic withdrawals for rent and car leases and all sorts of things like that can all be automated through rules. So as soon as QuickBooks sees these things, it processes them, and you can even say automatically add to my books, which means that it won't even ask you to approve it. It'll just add it automatically. So if you're confident in the way the rules are set up, then you can do that. Now, a really important thing for you guys as well as accounting practices, you can actually export these rules and import them to other client files. So it's a great feature to be able to get a lot more out of the setup of one set of rules. You can then export them and import them into other clients. Okay, now once I go back to the bank and credit cards. Once I see those items and I want to approve those, I simply go in here and I click Add, and QuickBooks lets me add those items to the product. Now, one thing it's going to let me do here is it's going to let me batch add transactions as well. So if I want to be able to batch add things, I can go on the left-hand side here. So over here, and I can select multiple ones. So if I want to choose both of the rules, I could then choose batch actions and choose accept selected, and it will add those things automatically. Then if I want to add these other ones, I can go ahead and process those. Now, we've talked about the matches and the rules. The third thing that QuickBooks is going to do is it's going to highlight items in green that you have done in the past. So if it knows that you've used meals and entertainment for pasta place in the past, it's going to suggest that you use it. Okay, and if you approve of it, you simply click Add, and you can go through and add those items. Now finally, the last thing is if QuickBooks doesn't know how to apply a match, a rule, or any suggestions, it's just going to ask you to do the categorization yourself. So I can click on this transaction. I can choose what account to put it towards. So I'll put meals and entertainment. Oops. And then I can add my tax code, which is H on purchases, and then I click add, and that adds that. So that is how you would automate the bank feed. And I encourage you to set this up when you first get going in QuickBooks for a client. You'll see how much value there is here. This is going to let you add new clients without having to add a lot more team members to work on those clients, because a lot of the data entry, in fact almost all the data entry, can be automated in some way or another in QuickBooks Online. So I'd encourage you to go ahead and set that up as your first task in QuickBooks to automate some of that information. Now, when you get into working with QuickBooks, you'll notice that there's the toolbox in the top left. Now, the toolbox is going to let you do a few additional items or transactions and tasks that your clients don't have access to. So if I click on the toolbox here, you'll see a number of them. So there you'll see the work papers. That's the new one that we talked about just a few minutes ago from the client list as well. You also have the Reclassify Transactions. So Reclassify Transactions is going to let you review accounts and then recategorize or reclassify transactions in batches to different accounts. So for example, if I wanted to review for this period here, I'm going to say 2014 to 2016, and I look at, let's say I look at business licenses, and I look at business licenses and I see, oh, that's weird, just one second. So I look at business licenses and permits, and I see that there's some transactions that I don't think should be in there. And so there you see a lot of information in here, so I know that my client has made some serious errors in how they've categorized things. So instead of having to go and do one individual transaction at a time, I can recategorize batches of these transactions. So I could take these expenses here, which I know are all office supplies, so I could select those transactions. I can change the account to, at the bottom here, to office expenses or office supplies, and when I click reclassify, it automatically changes those to that new account. Okay? And that allows me to go in and batch change transactions for my clients. So I don't need to worry about them making errors and having to do a whole bunch of work at reviewing those. You can review each account in one single place and then make batch entries to correct them as needed. So this is probably going to be common when, you know, someone goes in and they use the wrong vendor or the wrong account for a particular vendor. So maybe they paid the power bill to the wrong account for the whole year. You can go in and change all 12 transactions at one time. So a very easy way to handle mistakes that your clients make. You'll also see some other handy tools in here. So you've got an audit trail that will highlight all of your voided or deleted transactions. That will allow you to see what your clients have done when it comes to voiding and deleting. You can add journal entries from the accountant toolbox. So your regular journal entry is allowed here. Pretty standard type of transaction. That's also in the toolbox. You can also see things like closing the book. So this is where you're going to set up your closing date. So I'd click on it. I would select close the books up here, and I can add a closing date, and I can even add a password here. So that's a feature that's available from the toolbox as well. You also have a few more that are really handy. So the reconcile, that's a feature that you have. The unique thing about the reconcile for the accountant and bookkeeper is that you can undo reconciliations, and your clients do not have privileges to do that. Only you as the accountant or a bookkeeper can access the undo reconciliation feature. You also have accountant reports that are specific to accountants. Some of them are going to be available to all of your clients. Others are going to be unique to the accountant user. You'll see that there's about 24 reports here. All of the traditional reports that you're used to are here, plus some that are very unique and specific to the accountant user. And then you've got other things like reports tools where you can set up defaults for your reports. So what date ranges you want to have appear on default reports, and you can access the chart of accounts from here as well. So there's lots of information that's specific to the accountant under the accountant toolbox, and that toolbox is unique to you as the accountant user. And that's going to be one of the biggest benefits for you as the accountant user, is being able to see and work with those tools that are going to be unique for you as the accountant user. Now, before I move on to wrap up the session for today, are there any questions about what we talked about, just the last couple of transactions and tasks that we've showed, the accountant toolbox or the online bank feed? Any questions there? Okay, some good questions come in actually. So Choice asks, are there memorized transactions? Most certainly there are. You can go to the gear icon. Let me just see if I can get QuickBooks back here for a second. You can go to the QuickBooks gear icon, and you'll be able to go up here in the top right. Let me just see if I can see it. You can't see it in my window right now for some reason. Let me see if I can fix that. There we go. Up here in the top right, there's a recurring transactions. That's what we would call a memorized transaction in QuickBooks Desktop. That's available on any transaction. You can make anything recurring. And that's a feature that many people will also use to automate a lot of the bookkeeping. So Renee asks, what if my client does not have QuickBooks, they only want to do invoicing? Can I not just create a user and only give them access to their client file with them purchasing online? Without them purchasing online? So if you're subscribing, you can certainly give access to your client. If you're going to be the wholesale subscriber, you can give access to all of your client files to your clients. That's no problem. Someone would have to pay for the subscription to have access to invoicing. Otherwise, they won't have it. The only thing that's free is for you as the accountant user, a QuickBooks Online Accountant. Either your client or you will have to subscribe to QuickBooks to be able to use it on a day-to-day basis. So Doyen asks, can invoices be remotely authorized in QBOA? You can't go down specifically to a granular level like that where you just give access to a particular transaction, but you can give access to sales and customers and receivables. I'm not sure what you mean by remotely authorized. Everything is technically remote in QuickBooks Online because it's online. If you're saying you want to give approval to send an invoice or something like that, there aren't really approvals in QuickBooks, but that would be where you might use a QuickBooks Online app or something that integrates with QuickBooks nicely to be able to have that type of functionality. That would be something that would probably fit as well. So another question from Doyen, is it only bank statements that can be downloaded to QBOA? You can also do credit cards. So any account that the bank provides access to, whether it's a credit card or a bank account, savings account, checking account, all of those can be accessed and connected to QuickBooks Online. Renee asked, is the inventory module available online? It is, but it's only in QuickBooks Online Plus. So I have QuickBooks Online Plus set up in here. I can go to the gear icon, and under products and services, you will see that there is an inventory part in QuickBooks. So there you'll see I've got a few inventory parts here. It's certainly something that Intuit is really rapidly improving right now. They're working a lot on it as we speak, and new features are coming out all the time in the inventory. So yes, it is certainly a part of QuickBooks Online, most certainly. Okay, we've come to the top of the hour, so I want to wrap it up for now, but I just want to first of all give you what our next steps are. So let's just take a moment and go through those. So there's really three things that you can do. First of all, if you haven't signed up for QuickBooks Online Accountant, you can go to proadvisor.intuit.ca to sign up, and you can click on the QuickBooks Online Accountant link there, and you can sign up for free right at that proadvisor.intuit.ca site. And that will be the first step in getting signed up and getting you access to QuickBooks Online Accountant, and then you can add a client. So that's what I would encourage you to do if you haven't done so already. If you have any problems with that or have any challenges with that, give us a call at 1-800-452-9970, and you'll be able to get some quick access to help there from our sales team at Intuit. They'll be able to certainly point you in the right direction and get you signed up. And there's one other thing. If you've already signed up for QuickBooks Online Accountant, you can also visit the same site, proadvisor.intuit.ca, and click on the support and training link, and you can sign up for a full day or even more of training for QuickBooks certification to get going with the basics. There's advanced certification, there's QuickBooks Online Payroll, there's all sorts of training options you have there as well. I would love it if you could also take a moment and take this survey. So if you wanted to just take this survey by typing this into your browser, tinyurl.com/getstartedqboa, and that will take you to a quick survey. We'd love to know what you think of this training. In fact, I'll type that into the questions panel, and I'll send it to you so you can just copy and paste it directly into your browser so you can answer those. So those are the three steps I'd like you to take today. If you haven't had a chance, sign up. If you have any questions, give us a call, and we'd love to see you at a future training session. In the meantime, we'd love if you could just quickly take this survey and let us know how we can improve our training or what you liked about the training. So thank you very much for attending, and have a great remainder of your day.